Good evening and welcome to the final edition of this season's third tier. Today we're going to look back at the playoffs, players that have impressed you this season, a quick look at League One next season, and just a quick summarise just to say thanks for everybody for the sort of interim period we've been on for this season. But yeah, it's been awesome. And let me introduce my first guest. It's the usual gang tonight. So we'll start off with Ben. Ben, good evening. How are you?
Evening, Tom. Glad to be on, and I'm very good, mate. I hope you are all good as well.
Yeah, all good. Thank you very much, mate. And of course, Matt finishing his 100% attendance for the season. Matt, good evening. How are you?
Very well, thanks, fellas. Good to see you again after a week off. And yeah, looking forward to just tying up a few loose ends before, well, I'll say a summer break, but the Euro starts in about 6 days. So there's no break from the football. So I'm sure the wives and the girlfriends will all be pleased.
Yeah, absolutely. I said to the missus, the Euros is going to start as of Friday night. She said, England game? I said, nope, Turkey, Italy. She said, why are you watching that? I said, because it's the Euros. Same as every year. Good evening, Joe. I think this is 100% attendance for you. And of course, left foot, right foot, Kenny Dougal, and then Jake, ironically posting just underneath. Let's ignore the power final, which is a nice slipstream into our first subject of this evening, which is a playoff final review. Now, ultimately, I am the one smiling here, but we'll come to you first, Matt. First and foremost, what did you think of the game? And, you know, did it pan out as you expected?
The first 55 seconds or whatever it was didn't go the way I expected it. It was a bit of a shock for everyone, I think. But I think it affected Lincoln more than it affected Blackpool. Looking at the rest of the game, for me, it was almost that. I think I tweeted at the time and said if there was ever an example for a team scoring too early, it was Lincoln, because after that they literally didn't have any idea on how to play the game. They didn't know whether to try and press. They didn't know whether to sit back and defend what they got. And in the end, they sort of got stuck in between the two, and it made it very easy for Blackpool to just reset, compose themselves and play themselves back into the game. And I thought as soon as Kenny Dougal equalised, there was only ever going to be one winner. And I have to agree with what Michael Appleton said and a few Lincoln fans. They didn't really get out of first gear, and they didn't really show up as much as they wanted, and it looked like they froze a little bit. But that's nothing to do with Blackpool, and it's the old adage, you can only beat what's in front of you, and Blackpool done it very well. I think if someone had said to any Blackpool fan that Kenny Dougal was going to score the equaliser and the winner, they'd have probably all laughed. But that's the funny way that the football world works. And yeah, Blackpool deservedly getting promoted for me.
Yeah, over to you, Ben. Does it summarise well from Matt, or did you have different thoughts on the final?
No, I pretty much agree. And, you know, I said on another show that I thought Lincoln's, like Matt just had scored too early, and then they were clueless in what they were wanting to do, and all the game plan kind of went out the window. And sometimes kind of it can help a team get going scoring early, but it actually helped Blackpool going, because he thought, hang on, we need to wake up here, and they had to go for it. And when Blackpool have to go for it and they've got, you know, space opening up, they can hurt teams. They've seen it this year. They did the double over Peterborough, did the double over Portsmouth, you know, got a result over Hull at home, went away and drew. So we know what they're like against the better sides, even when they're sitting or even when they go for it. So I always thought Blackpool would come back. I was watching it in with my dad, and I said, I think Blackpool will score. Don't worry. He's a Blackpool fan. You know, just going, you know, they'll score it sometime. And Kenny Dougal comes up with a nice finish, and Rumi for handball, never for me. And then again, a lovely goal to win it. And I thought Blackpool sealed it out very well, and impossibly could have been 3 or 4-1. You know, Yates had a chance at Medine, you know, came on and held it up very well as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how Blackpool strengthen next season.
Yeah, for me, I think Matt and you both have summarised it quite well. I think after, again, I've had this before at Wembley. I'm sure Blackpool fans in the chat, like Joe, could sort of agree. When I went to Leyton Orient in 2001, we conceded after whatever was 32 seconds, and then had a bit of deja vu. And my Leyton Orient mate texted me saying it's just a Chris Tate syndrome, and you'll be fine. But I couldn't. I said to Gary and I said to Jake, even and Jake who's in the chat as well. Never have I. Did I expect? I didn't want Lincoln all season. You both know I predicted them to win the playoffs, and I didn't want them. And when they scored early doors, I thought, Garbutt's going to be done all game here and so on and so forth. But like you said, they just didn't settle, even though they scored. They just didn't settle, and we eventually grew into the game, and you just summarised it really well. And left foot, right foot, Kenny Dougal pops up. I think Palmer should do probably a bit better with the first. The second one's a superb strike for me, and we should have scored more. But at 2-1, you're always nervous, and they did have a couple of half chances, which, they could have snatched an equaliser, but it wasn't meant to be for them on the day. And I think they need to sign well, and I think they will next season. But I do worry that they might not produce the same sort of form that they had. Jake's just put here, had George's Thunderbolt gone in, not at the bar, which was a decent strike, to be fair. I think we're going to win the game. I think you were on top just a little bit just as that happened, and then it was literally after that we probably controlled the game. But yeah, Lincoln didn't turn up for me. And how do you think, I'll come to you first, Ben, how do you think Lincoln will do next season? Because Appleton's got a track record for signing really well on the loan market. Obviously, a lot of their team are loans, and they'll be missing a load of their core winners in the team this year. So how do you think they're fair next season, or do you think you're going to need to see the transfer window before you make that judgment?
I think it's like any team in League One. You always have a lot that go out and a lot that come in. I think the prime example is Oxford, who always sign very well. They sign good players, and it takes a while for them to kind of mould back together, get over the hungover of the playoffs, and then go again. I think it might take them a bit longer to get going, but I think if they can bring some, good players in, they've got, Hopper up front who can score goals. Not many, but you can keep, the Grants, the Monsumers, get maybe Palmer back, but I think he'll be first choice at West Brom next season. Maybe get, TJ Ioma back from Tottenham on loan. He's not really going to feature there. So, if they can just say, look at what we did last season, and we go again. I know, obviously, Matt will know Jordan Graham's been linked when, a good club, Gillingham. I think it's maybe a little bit of a step up, but not too far. I think he could get a championship move. But again, I think they can attract maybe bottom half championship players and just say, look, we're going on this journey. Look where we've come from, and this is where we go again. And I think Lincoln will go again next season.
Yeah, they're decent footballing sides, and I met a Lincoln fan on the train just before going into Wembley. Sorry, and he said 5 and a bit years ago, which we all knew they were playing sort of non-league football, and look at where they are now in League One. But part of me thinks it was a big opportunity for them. I don't know how you feel, Matt, but part of me thought that was their big opportunity to maybe play Championship football. But also that half of me, also like the NTT20 pod said, Appleton always signs really well, and he always has well-drilled, well-executed sides. So it wouldn't be a shock, really, would it, to see him there next season?
No, not at all. He's got a brilliant record at this level. If you go like Oxford and obviously now Lincoln, and like Ben said, clubs at this level have to rely on a lot of loans. So, and you take your chance with them, don't you? I mean, Gills were a prime example. We got 3 or 4 in the summer, and they didn't work out, and we had to ship them out in the January, and get other ones in that really strengthened us, and we improved markedly in the second half of the campaign. So it's all a little bit pot luck when you're taking a chance on these kids that come down from the Premier League or the Championship. But I'm sure Appleton would have had his feelers out probably at the end of last season already, and starting to try to touch base. And I know Steve Evans has been working every day since the season ended from our point of view, and I'm sure it's pretty much the same for Appleton, and I'm sure he's got his eyes on targets, and it'd be interesting whether he can get the likes of Morgan Rogers back or Brennan Johnson. But they were really good, and you'd imagine that certainly Johnson's going to feature at Nottingham Forest. He's a very good player. I've said that plenty of times. Forget all the other stuff that he needs to get out of his game. I'm not going to talk about it again because I've gone over it a few times this season. But in terms of natural ability, and he's got all the tools to succeed as a very good Football League footballer at the very least. So Rogers is an interesting one because I don't think he'll play Man City. So, but will they look to get him higher up? I'd imagine if they want to get him games next season, they might look to get him in the Championship as well. So it's going to be hard to replace them. I still think they need a proper number 9. I like Tom Hopper. I think he works hard. He runs the channels and he occupies defences. But I think he's only a 10 goals a season player at best. And I don't think that's enough if you really want to be push on and take the next step next season. So I think they might look to get someone else in there. Defensively, they were very good. But like Ben said, I think Palmer might be in contention next season, especially if Johnson continues to play like he did in the England friendly. I think he'll be off to the Premier League. I think both fullbacks were on loan, weren't they? Was it the two Edun and Ioma are both on loan? So they're gonna be hard to replace as well. But there's a chance you could get them back. Like Ben said, the one from Tottenham's not going to feature for Spurs. So if they can keep Grant, they can keep Bridge up. They've got they've got the core of a good side, but it's just about whether they can replace the quality that's going out and improve on that and kick on again. I'm not sure they will, but let's wait till the end of the transfer window before we start making proper predictions, so to speak.
Sure.
Yeah,
of course.
Just to join in on that, just quickly. Yep. Fleetwood last season, when we got into the playoffs, Connolly we had on loan. He left. He came back later on in the season, about 10 games in. Then we lost Harry Shooter, who was a big loss. We had him for 18 months. He went back to Stoke and played in the first team. Lewis Gibson went and got shipped out to the Championship, Reading on loan, not very successful. And we had Mackay, who came back later on. So already we'd lost 4 or 5 of our loan players, and it's a big key. And well, the thing is, Lincoln had most of it was along the back four. When you think your 2 fullbacks and your goalkeeper, 3 your back 5, as you will, it's a big key to release. You can go and get a goal scorer, it can score you 10 to 15 goals, but it's those top quality defenders in League One that they are hard to come by. And I think if Lincoln can replace them, they'll be in contention. If they can't replace, they'll have a season maybe a bit like a Shrewsbury did a few years ago, maybe a season like Fleetwood did last season.
Yeah, probably a bit more inconsistent than consistent. But as long as they keep Appleton, I think, like you say, they win for every shout. Good evening, Tom. Ruined your plans for next season with Blackpool going up. It's karma for wishing us to lose all season, buddy. Good evening, Andy from East Staffordshire. And then Joe's just put £359 in the North Stand for Blackpool season tickets next year. Fairly fair price. I think you get Mona's at any price, but that's about 14-15 games a season in Championship. Not bad. John, welcome again, John. Nice to see you. Regardless of whether Lincoln throws, they had a phenomenal season. Couldn't disagree more. Hi, lads. Even Matt, can't stick around. We'll catch up in the stream later. Really enjoyed the debut season. Look forward to next year. Welcome back to the Hull and Back podcast. We join you next season, mate. Congrats on winning the playoffs, Tom, and good evening, lads. Charlie, hello, mate. Good evening. What we got here? Lots of people. Yeah, as I was just saying, is Appleton going to be with us next season is the real question, and he's been touted at a few clubs already, hasn't he, Ben? And he deservedly will probably get a chance, but in my opinion, he should stay at Lincoln probably one more season just to see what he can do. It depends what kind of club comes in for him. Spore Allen, maybe you know him, Matt. It's the quietest Matt's ever been.
Is it? Yeah, he's Neil's fan, Alan. He's a good lad. So, evening, Alan. I could be louder if you want.
Jake's put Teo is ours, thankfully. So, won't be permanent.
He's permanently there.
Oh, fair enough then. Sorry.
About Appleton, I can agree. But when you look at his history, yes, he's been, at Blackpool wasn't the greatest, but we had to work under, the tightest man in football.
2 weeks, mate.
And if he had literally, I think, about 10 or 12 games, and he won once. But like I say, he had Oyster promising money that didn't give it. And then he went to Blackburn. Problems with the Venkies. I did a very good job at Oxford, and the West Brom job he is favourite. I think he's if you every 2 you put on you at one back. He's been there as an under-23s coach, so they like him a lot, and they're kind of a model that they like to kind of stay compact. I think they'll go down the Sheffield United route that they went down, try and bring a few more English players and get an English manager that can work well. So I think it'd be a perfect fit. But Lincoln just need to say to him, look, you're our man, please stay. And I think if he stayed, within 2 seasons, they'll be in the Championship.
It's a big shout. Like we said, we'll see how this season transfer window goes. We're just going to discuss now, and please join in because we'll get your comments in as well. Impressive size this season. Obviously, you've got your standard, your holes at Peterborough's, etc. But I'm just going to get the league table up because we're going to talk about sides that have impressed us, and also in the same section talk about sides that we think will do well that are not expected to do next season. I'm just going to get the league table up. Sorry, it's like in the middle of the screen. But Ben, when you look at the sides, sorry, Matt, I'll come to you first. When you look at the sides in and around League One next season, apart from the obvious lot from last year, is there any sides there maybe that have come up or down that you think are going to disturb the apple cart a little bit, or maybe that will struggle instantaneously? But for me, League One next season, it genuinely is the biggest, if not the most competitive league that I've
ever
intriguing,
seen, isn't it? There's some
Yeah.
intriguing teams certainly coming up. The Morecambes and the Cambridge that have either never been in there or have not been in there for a long time. Bolton coming back up to a level that they probably need to be at the very least, considering their recent history. And who was the fourth team that came up from League Two? Said Morecambe, Cambridge, Bolton, and
Cheltenham.
Cheltenham won the
Cheltenham
league.
won the league. Yeah,
Oh, Tom will be
that'd be,
slating you, mate.
that'll be an interesting one. You always say that you get one that goes straight through, but I don't see it with any of them four. Bolton potentially, if they have money to spend, I think they'll probably be the best out of the four and the best equipped to do well in League One. Out of the three coming down, though, I don't really see any of them having a real shot at the top two. I think Wickham are probably consolidate, and that's nothing against them or anything against Gareth Ainsworth. I think he's a very good manager, but I think we all know they had a bit of luck that they got into the playoffs 2 seasons back on points per game, and it was probably a bit of a freak and a bit of a one-off. I don't think they'll be in any danger, but I think they'll probably finish sort of top 12, top 10 without really sort of troubling the top 6. Who else? I saw that comment. Rotherham. Been speaking to Ian Bradders on Twitter, and I think all their strikers are being linked with moves away, which is never a great sign. Paul Warne knows how to get out of this division, but I think such is the strength of the league this year that I don't think they'll go straight back up. And Sheffield Wednesday could go straight back, could carry on and go straight down into League Two invariably. They're in the right state, aren't they? So I don't think it's fair to comment too much on them because it's not really a level playing field from their perspective. So Bolton to be the strongest in terms of the teams that are coming up, and not really sure on any of the three coming down in terms of really trouble in the top positions.
And Ben, from last season, obviously you got your Charltons, Ipswich's, Portsmouths, Lincoln, Sunderland. For me, regardless of who signs who, obviously there'll be, if Sunderland, like you said pre-show, that they're linked with Sanderson, and it's looking more likely by the day for 2 million. That's going to be one hell of a sign, and a bit like Blackpool did with Ballard on loan, it's going to be maybe that key differential at the back. But there is that ultimate sort of voodoo that is Sunderland, and they have that ability to maybe do as well as expected. But of the teams last season, who do you see being in and around sort of the top 6 consistently?
I've said it since this manager came in the door. And people don't think I'm crazy, but I think Shrewsbury, I'd be very surprised if Shrewsbury are knocking around the top 6, top 10. Steve Cottrell knows what he's doing. Remember, they were like second bottom of the league. He got them out of that, and they were averaging kind of 1.5, 1.6 points per game, and he kept them at it. Even when he was away with COVID, he kept them at it. They've got a good coach in Aaron Wilbraham. They signed Luke Lehigh, who can add goals from defence. Maybe defensively, he's not the greatest. He's got Matthew Pennington, who they signed as well. So I think they'll be in and around it. And then I look at kind of the other clubs that kind of missed out, that'll be stronger. I think kind of the ones that were, like the Crews, I think they'll drop down. I think MK Dons, I said it's a 3-year plan with them. He had his first half of the year where he kept them up, and then he had last year where they finished 13th. I think if MK Dons can finish in the top 10 this season, and then the year after really push for the playoffs, I think that'll be a good 2 years for MK Dons. I think they need to replace a few players. They've lost a few as well, but I think there's going to be a few surprises this year. I think there'll be 2 or 3 teams that weren't in the playoffs or weren't maybe in the top 10 last season that could upset it. And Gills are always up there as well, as Matt knows. They're always kind of they're like the Tottenham of the League One. They're there to put the pressure on, but just never quite get in on the last day. But they've got a good squad, Gills, and I think they'll be in and around. Well, they've got Steve Evans. They've got a chance.
Yeah. Joe's just put, come to you first, Matt. I think Burton the dark horse as they finish really strong. Do you think they've got the consistency and maybe with the teams that are in it to really challenge again, or do you think they'll just be a comfortable side mid-table this season rather than having that panic? Because obviously being after 23 games where they were 16 points, whatever it was, do you think they'll have such an uncomfortable season this year?
No, they won't. They won't be in any danger of going down. I think all the time that Jimmy Floyd and Dino Mamry are there, but I don't think they'll be in the top 6. I think they started really well. If this manager bounce is a thing, they really had it, didn't they? They were phenomenal for the first 8-10 games that they went in. Then they got a little bit inconsistent towards the end of the season, but they was already safe, and that happens. Subconsciously, players switch off a little bit once the job's done. So obviously that won't happen first half of the season. I think they'll be at it from the word go. They've made a signing today, I think, haven't they? Brought in Cameron Borthwick-Jackson on a free from Oldham, left back, who's I think was highly rated as a kid. I think was at United, but
was he United?
Career's stalled. But yeah, so that looks an astute signing if you can get him to step up. I don't think they'll break into the top 6. I think they'll still be a little bit inconsistent. But again, it's early June. We're 2 weeks after the season's ended. We could be having a completely different chat on the first show of next season after looking at everyone's transfer windows. They could have gone and signed a 20-goal a season striker and look a completely different proposition. But if you had to ask me now, I'd say they'd be absolutely fine. But I don't think they've got enough to get in the playoffs or the top 2.
Yeah, Answer said, I believe League One and Championship look the most competitive we've seen in a while. Couldn't agree more. I was impressed with Crewe, Evening Dan, was impressed with Crewe from what I saw the 2 games at Blackpool. If they can keep their group of players together, I think they need to sign potentially a bit of experience, but add that flair they've got as well. But they're going to do a decent job this year, I think, as well.
Might lose a couple, though. That's the trouble again, isn't it? Crewe, similar to most clubs, they'll end up losing a couple.
They're losing, Harry Pickering out. I mean, they're losing, Owen Dale could be off as well. So if they lose them, they have brought in Chris Long today, but who they're absolutely raving about. But I watched him at Fleetwood, and I'd put him in the top 3 worst players I've seen in a Fleetwood shirt. And I know you've seen him as well, Tom. I think he was a horrendous footballer.
Needs the right manager sometimes. Plymouth dark horses for me at the moment. Rhineland's got them playing some good stuff. Again, it's whether they're going to have the quality and depth to challenge, I don't know, but they're certainly a decent club. League One's going to be good next season for sure. The Burton story is a bit extraordinary this season, wasn't it? Yeah, when we had Ed on, he's described some of the stuff, and although we can look at the league positions, it's just extraordinary journey they've been on, a bit like Lincoln over the few years, and they've got a great backstory and a fantastic football club. Wigan and Ipswich definitely going to challenge Burton and Shrewsbury ones to watch. That's a really good shout, John. Love Accrington, have a tilt at the playoffs. Yeah, have you seen their stadium? Any of you two recently? Yeah. Have you seen the stand that's been built? Phenomenal work.
Yeah, follow Andy Holt on Twitter.
Yeah, superb. And Uppers, do you miss Louis Coyle?
Yeah, I think he was very solid. He was never like a 9 out of 10, but he was never less than a 7. He was very good defensively, stable, decent going forward as well. And we had him on loan for 2.5 years and on a permanent for 6 months, and we got quite a healthy 6-figure fee for him. So, he's a good player. I wish him all the best of luck, but I can't begrudge him going to the football team that he supports, his hometown. So, I do miss him, but like I say, we've just signed Brad Halliday, which is the first permanent proper right back we've had since Conor McLaughlin, if you're not counting Louis Coyle, that we had only for 6 months.
Yeah, absolutely. We're moving on now to just an interesting real graphic I want to talk about 5-10 minutes if possible. Matt, I'll come to you first because you've tweeted about this graphic earlier on and we've got a few things to say about it. So I'm just going to bring up, again, sorry it's quite small, we couldn't get a bigger graphic, but this is the table after 23 games this season. And Matt, I'll come to you first, but your thoughts when you first saw this. I know you tweeted a lot about it, but even looking back at some of the sides, obviously you initially see Burton, you even see Gills in there with a late flourish, and then you see teams such as Accrington, Lincoln, Doncaster at the top, and you realise what a mad season has actually been, don't you?
Yeah, it's crazy, and my eyes were immediately drawn to the top and the bottom in that, and I that's what I tweeted, that's what I quote tweeted, and said that it's ironic that Doncaster and Burton essentially flipped places through the second half of the season, because Burton ended up on something 50-odd points, so they took 41 points from their following 23, and Doncaster went the other way and took 16 from the final 23, which saw them drop all the way down to 14th, which is a staggering collapse. I didn't realise how bad it was. I wasn't aware that they were top at the halfway stage, so that's an unbelievable collapse. I know they lost a couple of players and essentially their manager as well, so Ben Whiteman and Darren Moore were huge cogs in their wheel, so to speak, and you didn't realise how big until they disappeared. But Blackpool in green as well obviously were promoted, so they had a phenomenal second half to the season. So if you look at that, 34 points at the halfway stage, ended up on 80, so that's 46 from the second half of the season. That's 2 a game. That's absolutely outrageous at any level. So fair play to Neil Critchley, and again deserved. I think I saw another stat the other day which said it was the first time ever that first, second, and third, first, second, and third, and first, second, third, and fourth had all been promoted from the Championship, League One, and League Two. So that was a weird one as well, and it just sort of ties in with everything. It was a weird season for everyone when it would not being able to go and stuff like that. But yeah, there was a few that stood out. Gills improved quite steadily. It's whether we can start properly this season. If we want to have any sort of real go at the top six, I think we need to start better, recruit better in the summer. But yeah, the two big ones were obviously Burton and Doncaster, and essentially went from top to bottom and bottom to top in the two halves of the season, and were the very definition of the old adage, the old cliche, game of two halves, or a season of two halves for both of them.
Yeah, most definitely. Matt's just said slightly concerned about Pompey, our lack of players right now, but we'll see at the end of the year. They lost another player today, didn't they? Gone to Doncaster close. So I know effectively refused to play until they draft a new squad. An amazing Jimmy Ford-Hesbank achieved it, but when you look at the table, well, when you say refused to play, obviously a few games got called off, didn't they, due to COVID and stuff like that. But ultimately, I said the same about Lincoln when apparently they had a break because of COVID. A lot of people said that it wasn't that bad and they should have played on, but whatever works at the end of the day, I think if you need that break and you can make it happen, then I wouldn't criticise any team if it done the positivity to them. Trust the Cowleys, Matt. They produce, speaking from experience. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and Dan's just alluded to that tactical COVID for both Lincoln and Burton this season. But you say what you want. It's an unknown. Wasn't it an unknown pandemic? And if it was in their squad, then you can't blame them at all.
Thing is, as well, how much does it help them? Because they end up with a fixture pile up. So they're postponing games, but then they've got to go and play Saturday, Tuesday for 3 months at the end of the season, like you ended up doing because you had to play teams that had games called off. So I don't think it really gave teams that were doing it a head start, because they ended up having to play so many games in a short space of time, even more than everybody else did. So I'm not sure it gave teams too much of an advantage. The one that made me laugh was Jake. I went on to the Stacey West to preview a game that then got called off because of a waterlogged pitch, and he texted me that night and he said, I'm not sure why it's been called off, it's been dry up here for 2 days, and then it found out that apparently they had a COVID outbreak as well, so and that came from him, so I'm not sure what was going on then, but it is what it is, and it was a weird season and we got through it. I think that was the main thing.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be happening. Fingers crossed again next season. Hopefully we can be back in the stadium. Ben, I'll come to you first, or we'll talk about a few things on Twitter that came through this evening. I asked the viewers and listeners their viewers' choices for their player of the season. We had a few. I'll start off with one, Hayden Carter. He came in on loan at Burton, ever present since centre back for Burton, and obviously a pivotal point in their defence this season. I think he played 90 minutes almost every game since the 9th of January.
Scored the winner on his debut, I think, against us in Hasselbank's first game as well. Yeah, they beat us 1-0.
So a superb loan signing, Ben, and I don't know if you've seen him too much this season, but he certainly was a part of their transfers in January, which helped them become such a decent side in the second half of the season.
Yeah, they brought quite a few decent players in the January, didn't they? Obviously, they got Carter in at the back. They got Johnny Smith, who's a very good player at this level. He's done it with Oldham as well in League Two. So they've got a few good players. I think when you look at the other nominees for player of the season, I know the MK faithful are talking about Scott Fraser. When you get 20 goal contributions in a team that finished 13th in the league, 14 goals, 6 assists on a free transfer, it's unbelievable. He didn't start off too well, but again, he always looks a threat, and a very good passer of the ball. He's at 14 goals, is some going, 6 assists as well. So there's quite a few to choose from, isn't there? But I think Fraser's got to be right up there. Then you've got your obvious ones, your Yates, your Pigott, your Johnson Clark Harris's, your White, your Chris Maxwell's, and so on. So we could be here all day talking about how many good players are in League One now.
Yeah, I think when it comes to someone like Scott Fraser, on paper, when he has had the season he's had, and I genuinely believe MK Dons will probably be pushing top 10 next season. Maybe not sort of in terms of top half. I think though, if they sign well, I think they've got the core and the experience. If they don't lose Fraser, for example, they're going to be pushing really well next season. And at the moment, I can predict about 12 teams that can probably make the top 2 or the top 6. So that's why it's so interesting next season. And how much do you think a Sunderland or someone like that would pay for Fraser? Even players like Embleton, which I spoke to the Roker report about this week, when they said they weren't in their plans, they said, is it easy to say in hindsight? I said to him, it's easy to say in hindsight, that would Embleton make a difference to Sunderland this season? And obviously, the obvious answer is yes, because we've been promoted. But if he weren't in Johnson's original plans, then you can't criticise Johnson for not playing him. But I see Sunderland going out for someone like that, and they're going to keep McGeady by the looks of things next season. He's going to be key for them. But do you think he can replicate what he done, or do you think he'll want to play in League One, Matt, next season?
Embleton, McGeady.
Sorry, McGeady.
It's an odd one, isn't it? He's 35 now. Would a Championship side take a punt on him? Not sure. Purely because of the age, but in terms of ability, he's still doing it, isn't he? He's still setting up goals. He's still creating chances. He's still causing fullbacks no ends of problems. But I think he'll end up staying at Sunderland.
Yeah.
My concern with Sunderland now is Lee Johnson. I just think that, and we laughed about it throughout the whole running, didn't we? The streaky Lee thing, but there is something to it. And if he starts like he ended the season, I think we could have another Jack Ross or Phil Parkinson situation, and he'll be gone.
Yeah, I think for me, he's got a touch of the Bowyer about him, and even Kenny Jackett to some extent. Do you remember Bowyer was, just saying things post match that he just didn't want to hear, and it came a bit frustrating and annoying, a bit like Barton as well when he was blaming the ref every single week. And I appreciate they always have something probably to back that up. At the same time, you want him to say something different about their team and what they're going to do next game to improve it. But he always sort of came up with an excuse towards the end. And yeah, fingers crossed. Sunderland, they don't deserve to go up because they haven't been good enough for 4 years. But a club that size, the fans certainly deserve a lot more. Jakes, but George Grant, of course. I said George Honeyman on Twitter. Yeah, absolutely. And Malik Wilson and Jacob Reeves have superb seasons as well. Jakes put Wigan have been linked with Fraser. That's Wigan's an interesting one.
Been linked with everyone, haven't they, at the moment? Who they signed so far? They've signed a couple. Was it Jack Watmore? They got Jack Watmore in, haven't they? Is that done?
Jack Watmore on a free. So, he's been there at Portsmouth years. It's, first move. So, proper out of Portsmouth. But I worry with Wigan. I just hope that they've not come in. And I look at it and I think what Scunthorpe did, I think what Fleet would have done. You think what, Berry have done where, owners have come in and gone, oh, let's splash the cash here a bit. Look at like Wednesday did the first 2 seasons in the Championship Chancery. And then they're out of money, and then they don't know what to do, and then they kind of think they have to stabilise again. I just hope that Wigan aren't going to do that. I hope Wigan are sensible enough to go, right, let's bring players in that aren't going to destroy the wage budget that we can afford, and it's not going to tip us over again. So if they can stay nice and relaxed on the wage budget, I think they'll be okay, Wigan. I think they've got to think of the long-term future instead of just trying to lure the best players in League One into one squad.
Yeah, I think you're right. You can go the other way, can't you, and sign ridiculously, pick your players from, but it doesn't always work like that. Sometimes you need that strong unit, a bit like Hull. They weren't as fashionable as everyone would like them to be when you win the league, but at the same time, they always know how to win, and they were a very strong unit with a decent manager that just found ways to win. A bit like Burton were as well. They find ways to win. So I think they'll be all right. I think their owners are unknown, aren't they? So we can't sort of comment on what the owners are going to be like, but that's another one next season. They're a massive club. They've been in the Premier League, obviously, for years. Won the FA Cup. New owners on the bounce of surviving relegation, and again, they'll be one to look at next season. You wouldn't be surprised if they're in the top half as well. So I'm really looking forward to the transfer window, and I'm really looking forward to see how teams are shaping up come next season because there's some massive teams in there. Ali, and I'm sure you'll agree, Matt, he's put Big V all day long.
Yeah,
was he your player of the season?
He was my player of the season for Gills. Yeah, I mean, you take his goals out of that, and we were never even a chance of getting into playoffs. 20 in all competitions, 17 in the league, 8 in a month in March. That's got us into the playoffs, didn't it? Momentarily because of playing before everyone else. But yeah, I said start of the season, would he make the step up? He hadn't scored loads for Northampton. But it seemed that he continued to do everything that he did for the Cobblers, and the ball started going in a bit more. And that was similar for his season in terms of the first half of the campaign with us. I think he was doing everything that he was doing in the second half of the season, but it just seemed that from sort of middle of February onwards, everything was going in. And very good player and one of the best at what he's meant to do in League One, I think now, and that's, I know I'm coming with a little bit of bias there, but he's got to back it up next season. Of course, if he goes and struggles next season, then the old one season wonder comes out. But I'm confident he'll go and score goals again, and I think he'll probably thrive on the fact that he'll be the ultimate number one next season. In terms of this year, he came in and he was competing with John Akindi and Dominic Samuel, and I think this season he's our prime striker, and then others have to try and get the shirt off of him, so to speak. So I think we'll be absolutely fine if we can keep him, and he'll score plenty of goals again.
I genuinely don't see him struggling one bit. I think he's found his feet, and like you say, he's going to be the main man next season as long as he keeps fit. I think he'll be. You can easily see him scoring 12, 13 goals before the season's even started with confidence, can't you? How do you think it's going to fare? I'll stay with you, Matt. Even though sort of he's losing Jordan Graham, I think Jordan Graham deserves a shout in terms of numbers from a mid-table side. Obviously, he's supported Dean Oliver really well this year. And do you think you're going to sign to replace him, or do you think you're going to find a different system next year which is going to work well for Dean?
I'm intrigued to see how we go, because I spoke to Jordan last week for my channel, and I think he said on there that when he first joined on loan at the back end of last season, he couldn't get in the side because we were playing a diamond and he was the only natural wide man. It was only when we started having to really win games and take chances that we were playing 3 centre forwards, one from the side, and then Jordan Graham as a winger as well. So I think we might go back to the diamond this season. I think we might go away from the natural wide men. He's virtually impossible to replace unless you spend big money, I think, because 13 goals, 12 assists in all competitions is, like Jake said, it's a really good record for a team that we was above mid-table, and he's being nice, and because he wants to sign him and all that. But he was very good, very, very good, and it was an interesting comment he made with me, and he might. I hope he forgives me for saying this, because this was before we went on air with the interview, and he said that he might not go Championship, he might stay League One if the right club and the right manager come in for him and the project is correct in terms of developing his game, because we have to remember that he's 26, but he's also lost a lot of time in terms of games. He's only played 100 or so first team games because of that ACL that he suffered at Wolves. Yeah. So he feels in terms of his body, he's still only sort of early 20s. So it might be that if a League One project takes his fancy, he said it's not about the money for him. He just wants to go to a team where he can develop his game. But at the same time, he was very forthright when I asked him right at the end and said, would we still see Jordan Graham as a Premier League player? And he was very confident that he will get to the Premier League. So it'd be an interesting journey to watch, I think, the Jordan Graham one, wherever he goes. But I don't think it's a gimme now, having spoken to him one-on-one, that he's necessarily going to go to the Championship. He wants to play for a manager that will develop his game and teach him new roles. He was talking about the number 10 and that type of thing as well. So I think it'd be an interesting story, however it goes.
Yeah, well, that's Fleetwood lined out with Grayson. Thanks a lot, Matt.
I didn't say it.
Go back 15 years and you can sign.
He also said that's why he didn't re-sign with Gilles, Ben. So
even in Scoops, I'm not smug at all, fella. Just had a decent season. I'm very happy.
Just been pissed for a week.
Mate, I'll tell you what, I woke up Monday. I sent you. Did I send you that video? I sent the third tier that video. I watched it back the other day. I didn't realise it was even on my phone. Yeah, I was merry to say the least. But yeah, Monday I woke up. I was absolutely fine. Went for a walk with the family. I was up at 5 a.m. the next day, so watched the final back just to sort of relive it, because half cut at the time, and it was like I said, a really good weekend of football for us, and not so much for Lincoln fans. But yeah, even Ian, Miller's fan here, looking forward to getting involved next season. Yeah, we can't wait to have some Rotherham fans on next season and getting involved. And a nice comment from Jake there. Fair play, Matt. A nice comment back to him about Lincoln. Going to go over to you now, Ben, just to give us a little update. Obviously, it's been a ridiculously busy couple of weeks since the season's, or sort of a week or so since the season's finished. And we're just going to touch upon some of the transfers that have caught your eye, or as many as you want to talk about. We've got plenty of time, so feel free to take over at this point.
Yeah, when I look at the signings, there's been quite a few. I think there's been 15 or 16 with the updated ones today. Look at Accrington, as what I like they've done this year. They've gone out and got, Pell from Colchester. Last year they went to go and get Burgess straight away. So already Coleman said he always likes to get his first signing in on time before the season and get him in. And that's what he did last year, and that's what he's done this year. I like that a lot. Bolton, 3 signings, George Johnson, played in the Dutch league, was on loan at Wigan towards the back end of last season. I like him a lot. Josh Sheehan, again, played for Newport. A funny stat was he played 25 games on loan, and he scored 7 goals. He signed permanently, played 154 games and only scored the 8 goals. So scored a lot of goals in the first 7 and kind of dipped in the 154. Maybe now he thought, I've got a contract now. It doesn't really matter now. But a very good player as well. We talked about Cameron Bothwell Jackson, fullback, lots of energy, good going forward. Crew again, Chris Long, he's a good player. He knows it. And he's one of those, like you said before, Tommy, if a right manager can come and get him under the shoulder, I think he's a very good signing at this level. Dave Artell's good at doing that. Doncaster, Ben Close, that is a terrific signing on a 3-year deal. I think most of these signings are at least a 2-year, but a lot of them are 3-year deals. And, Ben Close, 3-year deal, he said how much he's always enjoyed playing against Doncaster because how good they've been. We signed Brad Halliday, decent, solid signing, mid-table. I think, like I say, Matt will be happy with the Ollie Lee signing. I think it's very solid. I think it's a smart piece of business. I think when a player successful in your team, I think you need to forget about the older players, and you need to think about the players that you had that's made you so good and bring them back. I think you're the same next year, Tom. You'll be watching the Ballards, the Gabriels back and so on. And Ipswich, they look also to be spending a bit of money as well. Wes Burns, undisclosed fee from Fleetwood. Good sign. Lee Evans again, both 2024 deals. So it seems like it's going to be a 3-year deal, 3-year project at Ipswich. Portsmouth, Plymouth, James Wilson, experienced centre half. Shrewsbury, been impressed, like we said before. Pennington and Lehigh, and Oxford, Marcus McGoon, good signing, and Wigan, Jack Watmore. So it's been a lot of good signings. I'd like to ask you, which would you say so far would be your standout signing? Because when I look at it, I think Ben Close is a very good one. And I also think what Ipswich have done with Lee Evans and Wes Burns are very good as well.
I'll go to you, Matt, first.
I'm very happy with mine because based on the fact that we know how well he plays and he plays the system. So I think it's the least risky of everything at the moment. Don't get me wrong, there's potential for others to go and be better than Ollie Lee, but I think in terms of getting someone back in who is very good, has played a big part in the success and 2 top 10 finishes over the last 2 seasons. I'm very happy with that one. But yeah, I think Ipswich will be the ones to keep an eye on. I think Paul Cook's been given licence to go and spend a bit and get his own players in. It looks like he's trying to get the average age down and make them more dynamic and a bit more on the front foot, because last season it was boring, wasn't it? I mean, we spoke about them at the end of the season. I think they went however long without even scoring a goal, and it weren't against teams that were up the top. It was teams that were struggling down the bottom. So I think
Paul Cook's did the double over.
Yeah, that wasn't in the running, was it? I mean, they were really struggling at the end of the season. There were so many 0-0s, and it wasn't even fun to watch. I mean, you get the odd good 0-0, but I think they'll be a completely different animal this season with a proper pre-season and Paul Cook getting his own players in. I think there was one. Did you mention Plymouth's one as well, Ben? I was just trying to look through.
James Wilson, James Wilson,
I think that looks.
I really like that.
That looks like a decent signing for them as well, because they were poor defensively for the back end of the season. I don't think they won any in their last 8 or 9, and he'll help them out. But yeah, it's it's 1 or 2 here and there at the moment. Once you start seeing teams bringing clusters of players and you can start working out systems and shapes, it'll be a lot more interesting, and we'll have a lot of a much better idea in terms of how the table might shape up next season. Invariably, we'll all do our predictions and we'll be wildly wrong like I was last season. But
and Plymouth also, Danny May signing a new 2-year contract.
Yeah, that was announced today. Yep.
Good signings coming out of Plymouth as well. So
sorry, mate, go on.
So I think Gab Sutton tweeted the other day, and I agreed with him. He goes, it's the first time he's thought that 14 or 15 clubs could get in the top 6. And I always say, there's always those, I always say there's 12 that could go up, and there's about 6 or 7 that can go down. But this year, I'd say there's 14 that could go up and about 6 that will go down. And I bet you Fleetwood and Gillingham will be the 2 that aren't, any of them. It'll just be, a bit of mixture, bit of play, a bit of,
mate, you're bringing Gillingham down here, mate. You're in trouble.
I'm bringing Fleetwood up more, mate. I tried to bring Gillingham up so you forget how I put Fleetwood up.
I think you're completely right. And the reason I find, and what Matt said is spot on, it's intriguing. The reason it's intriguing is because whoever doesn't go up are going to be mightily pissed off, because of the teams expected to go up. So your Portsmouth, Ipswich, your Sunderlands, all your teams that are expected to finish in the playoffs, we're going to get about 5 or 6 teams that aren't going to go up, that really want to go up. And will they invest heavily this year to go up, or will they lose their managers for not performing as well as they want to? So it's the first 10 games, which Matt said, like the Lee Johnsons of the world, is going to be really squeaky bum time early doors. And I think teams need to start really well. I don't think it'll be the same as Ipswich. I think they're going to be a bit more patient with him. And as you said, Ben, with those 2 signings, and Matt, when they said they've got a license to spend money, do you see it as a 2-year project, or do you really think the owners or Paul Cook will want to be up and around the playoffs straight away?
Guess we'll only find out come end of August, won't we? Because it's 2 players they've got in now, but we've got all summer to find out how much they're going to, dip into their pockets, so to speak. The one that interests me more is Portsmouth as well, and I know a couple of comments have come in, and Jake said to the Portsmouth fan, Matt, not to worry and trust the Cowleys, and I get that. They're very good at what they do, but the one that confused me a little bit was Andy Cannon being released. There was no attempt to keep him, I don't think, and that was a strange one for me, because I thought he was playing well back end of the season. He's a decent midfielder at this level. He was good at Rochdale. I'm pain in the arse to play against, because he's one of them players that you want inside the tent spitting out rather than outside spitting in. He's a very good player, and he's a nightmare to play against, and that was a strange one. The other ones they released, you could understand. Charlie Daniels was getting on and wasn't really playing well. Geordie Hawula, I just think needs a home, Geordie Hawula. I think there's talent in there, and he's still only mid-20s.
It's like Chris.
If someone takes a chance on him and says you're going to play 30, 35 games in the league, I think he'll get you 10, 12, 15 goals. I just think that he's been so nomadic for so long now that he just never really settles anywhere. He gets 6-month or year deals and is never really first choice. I just think if a club was to say, right, let's take a chance on him and make him, I don't know, dare I say, I think I put him in my potential targets for Gillingham. If you say to him, you're going to come in, you're going to be first choice, and you're going to play up alongside Verdane Oliver, I think there's a very good footballer in there. I think he just becomes a little bit sort of master of all trades and, jack of all trades, master of none, because he can play through the middle, he can play from the side. So I don't think he ever nails down a position. But I think there's potentially a very good centre forward in him.
He was misused at Pompey because, like you said, he would come on 83 minutes, and then what?
They play him out wide, didn't they? But then Jack was in the 10 as well.
Yeah, it was an awful management from him, and to be fair to him, it could be the best thing that ever happened. And Matt's just alluded to the Cannon. He always puts in loads of effort, but the numbers are always slightly poor. And Ant's linked with his 16th player tonight in the chat. So Andy gone with Hull. They were close to signing to Monco tonight, so maybe he's going to take the step up to Championship side. I think he'll be an half-decent squad player, that's for sure. Ian Bradley's put, can we have, where's Josh Emmanuel? Sorry, he also put, can we have Yates back, Tom? The irony of not wanting to play him now, obviously, with you in League One and him going up, but we'll see how he fares in the Championship. And Joe's put, what League One club do we see Solid Kaikai ending up at? Yeah, it's an interesting release from Blackpool. He didn't want to leave, judging by his statement, and is a bit he's a bit unlucky to be released. Very frustrating on his day, but one hell of a player in there. I don't know. You'd like to see him at someone like Gillingham is not probably out of question. If Evans wants to go out and get him, I think he'll go somewhere to play football. Do I think he'd be ready for the Championship? First half of the season, I didn't want him anywhere near the squad. Second half of the season, he turns into this player that wins games by himself, i.e. Sunderland strike, i.e. the Gillingham game when he was out of this world. And you just think we need to see that week in, week out. And for me, I would probably want him in the squad still, and that's coming from me, who literally didn't want him in the team. But I'm a bit more shocked than I was at Ollie Turton leaving. Some players were a bit more shocked at Ollie Turton leaving than Kaikai, but we'll see where he ends up. And I think is one hell of a sign in there for League One at any team in there.
Yeah, I had an interesting chat with a couple of Blackpool fans on Twitter, and they said that they think he'd be better as a 10, whereas you tended to play him from the side. And I said, well, we've just signed Ollie Lee, so in that, does it then negate the chances of us getting him in? But I think, again, I know I've just said the opposite about Hawula, but at this level, you need a few players that can play one or two positions, because generally you run with smaller squads in League One, especially a club like Gillingham, Fleetwood, that type of thing. I'm not going to get into budgets and comments like that because I'll get shot down. But I just think where if he ends up in League One, he's prove to be an asset. I think if you can keep him fit, and I think he's been Southern based, hasn't he, as well? Aside from Blackpool, I think he's always been down this way. So
and the signing of Embleton really let him and Embleton be free, because they both drifted in between number 10 and the wing position, and they interacted really well. So any League One side he walks into, for me, providing he shows the right sort of attitude and and wants to play, and when he wants to play, he can really play. But moving on to the last couple of bits of the show, I wanted to ask both of you just one question. If you want to sign anyone that's available this window, I'll start with you, Ben. Who's going to improve your side exponentially to give you a chance next season? Who is it?
Well, I'm going to say again, Matt Geordie Awula. We've had him before. We had him when we nearly went down. When we had Uwe and Sheridan came in and saved the day, so he scored, I think, 12 or 13 goals that season in all competitions. He's a quick winger. He's a very he's not kind of a high player. He's kind of very low toned and gets on with his business, which I like. And he'll score us goals. And we need a striker. We've only got one striker at the club. We've only got 12 players, including 3 goalkeepers. So, we need a striker. So I'd probably say Geordie Awula, and we know he can go and get 10 to 15 goals. And if we can get that, that's the difference between a point a game and 1.5 points a game, which is all the difference between a bottom 4 place finish and a mid-table place finish. If we get Awula in, I'll be delighted.
Spot on. And Matt?
There's plenty out there, isn't there? Like I said, I did my video a couple of weeks ago. There's so many good players that you can get on a free. In terms of the positions that we've lost out on, I think we can get a goalkeeper pretty easily. They're not too tricky to find, solid League One keepers. I know we've been linked on Twitter the other week to Luke Chambers, but it looks like he's going Colchester, because I know Cole Scooser's gone there already from Ipswich. So it seems like there's going to be a bit of reunion in Essex. But that type of centre-half, for me, I think is something that we lacked all last season, is an experienced head. And if you could get a Chambers type in and guarantee that he plays 35, 40, 45 games, then I think it would be brilliant for someone like Jack Tucker, who spent all of last season up until Christmas having 6, 7 partners at the back, which was no good for anyone. And that's why we were so inconsistent. Second half of the campaign, we got Robbie Cundy in, young himself, but at least what it did was it gave consistency in selection, and it gave Jack Tucker a regular partner, and with that, results got better because there was consistency in performances and people knew how to build up relationships. But I think an experienced centre half would be vital for Gills if we want to make that next step, and then we can build the squad around that. I think we can find a keeper. We know Jordan Graham and Connor Ogilvie are going to be hard to replace, but I think you can find decent left backs. And I think we might go back to the diamond. So then that sort of counters the loss of Jordan Graham. Is that Hull and Back have been linked to another player now? Is that Carl Dempsey we've just seen there? We'll put that one up. Look at that. They've signed basically the whole of the division. They have signed the whole division, and they'll still get relegated. I'm only joking.
They signed George Moncur today, haven't they?
They did, yeah. A lot of their fans didn't want him looking at the replies. I think he's a very good player, especially
at a good high League One player, bottom end Championship, not sure.
He's one of those players in your squad that you want, and that's why I think Ollie Turton for Blackpool, he's been phenomenal all this season. And when we released him, I was shocked because he's such a versatile player, and I think he's going to go to a League One club, and then 2 minutes later he's signed for Huddersfield, which I don't know. We'll see. If they're using him as his main right back this season, they could be in trouble. But that's more of the Championship talk. Link to everybody, sign nobody. You've been looking at the EFL. What is it? EFL transfer news on Twitter.
EFL Hub, EFL Zone, EFL Zone 2, EFL.
Absolute whoppers. But yeah, that just concludes today's show, guys. I just want to say we're going to enjoy the Euros as much as we possibly can. I know Gareth Southgate is probably not going to play anyone we want to play, and play 5 centre midfielders or 3 right backs. Who knows? But fingers crossed we can have a decent tournament and we see some decent football. And touchy subject, but see 90,000 fans back at Wembley 2 weeks after we had 4,000 there. So Ben, I'll leave the expletives out of this one. I'll mute you quickly. But yeah, it's an absolute joke. But it'd be good to see England fans back in numbers regardless of the situation. And fingers crossed the boys can do us proud. But after that, we're going to let the transfer window kick on, see what teams, players sign, and get some guests on based on that, and then give our thoughts on that. And then we'll do a our first show, proper show back to preview the season is going to guess from 1 to 24, a bit like the Seasiders pod did last year. And there's some cracking guesses out there. And I know you both have made sort of some predictions so we'll do them live on air and maybe get a fan on to give us their thoughts on 1 to 24 as well. But leaves me to say thank you so much. It's been such a welcome start for the 30th. I think it's our 10th show now, and it's been awesome. So I can't wait to meet some new fans next season of new clubs that have come up and down. And fingers crossed, it's going to be an incredible season. So thank you so much from me. Maybe some audio pods out in the meantime, guys. But I just want to say first and foremost, thanks for the support. Keep with us for pre-season, and we look forward to seeing next season. Matt, anything to say to the viewers and listeners?
It's pretty much the same, and thank you to you as well for getting me involved. Like I say, it was something that I've been wanting to do, and it's nice to regularly talk about League One as a whole rather than just the Gills, because that does not get boring, but it's one club and you're talking about the same things week on week, and it's nice to be able to cover the division as a whole on a regular basis with you two, and both of you very knowledgeable and passionate about your teams. And obviously we know you'll be doing it as an independent next season because you'll be in the Championship and enjoying the second tier. I'm sure you'll get invited onto that podcast at some point. But no, thanks for getting me on, and thanks to everyone who makes it what it is. I say the same as I do with my channel. It's nothing if no one interacts and no one retweets and shares and comments on Twitter or gets involved and makes comments on the live feeds. It'd just be us three talking to each other. So to everyone who's liked, shared, retweeted, shouted out and done all that, thank you very much, because it makes the show much more enjoyable.
Thanks. Ben, we'll end with you, mate.
Yeah, mate. Honestly, thank you for getting me on. Obviously, when you first approached me, at the start of the year, I was absolutely buzzing to get on, and I've enjoyed talking about, League One. It's kind of kept me on knowing what I want to talk about now. So I can't thank you both enough. It's been an absolute pleasure on a Monday to come on and kind of get a bit of stress out when maybe Fleetwood had lost or drawn. But no, I've really enjoyed it. And like Matt said, without the viewers, it's nothing. And we have those that tune in, and the regulars as well. Like Sadathers, Jonathan, and so on. But there's loads of them that are so supportive, and I can't wait for next year. And like I say, we'll only get better. So hopefully next year we have a bit more to talk about, full season, and hopefully get better as well. But thank you again, mate.
No worries. And we get to see you both at games next season, and the videos back with actual fans singing songs. So I can't wait to see the fans' videos and getting them involved next season. It gives us another dynamic to the show as well.
I think someone put, didn't they, Tom? Sorry to interrupt, mate.
No, you're fine, mate.
I think someone put a Blackpool fan. He was at Wembley and he didn't get his phone out because someone texted him thinking there was going to be a goal alert because they thought the match was behind. Because he's so used to watching an iPhone. I think it'll.
Oh my God!
I think it'll be a
while.
You
must have had too many Guinnesses, mate.
I know. I think it'll be a while until we're fully back in swing. But I can't wait, and hopefully it's a good season for us all.
Of course. For now, and we'll see you in a few weeks, maybe a month or so. It's a good night from all of us, and see you soon.